got it. Hello, I'm Claire. I play the flute, and I'm here with my dear friend Dai, composer, and we're so excited to bring Dai's wonderful flute concerto to Music of Today on January 20th with the Philharmonia Orchestra. Well, Dai, why don't we start with how we met?
Yeah, well, you like to talk about this.
I mean, you like to talk about it too.
No. Yeah.
I like to set it up by saying that you are one of my most successful internet dates.
That's true.
No. We met online in 2002 when my ensemble, the International Contemporary Ensemble, was doing a call for scores. We were looking for works by young composers in other countries. We had just graduated from school, and this was pre-social media. This was, the way that we communicated, email was still kind of new, and we communicated via listservs, right? Yeah. So I don't actually know how you got this notice, but it somehow ended up in your inbox, and you somehow sent a package of scores and this CD to this little tiny outfit in Chicago. We didn't even have an office. We thought maybe we'd get a couple dozen scores from around the world, hoping that we would discover like the next great somebody, right? And we had hundreds of entries from, I think it was like 31 different countries. Mm-hmm. And one of them, I will never forget, I remember the look and the feel and even the smell of this package that came from you, had your beautiful handwriting on it. And so the ensemble, we sat down, we put the CD into the CD player, and usually when you're doing this kind of adjudication for calls for scores, you listen to like 30 seconds of it. We listened to the entire 60 minutes of your CD, and our jaws were on the floor. And we were like, who is this kid? Why don't we know him? Why has this music never been played in the US? Can he please be our friend? And so we emailed you.
That's true.
You wrote back within like 5 minutes.
Yeah, but because I don't get much reply, especially about time. I was also just doing a master course somewhere in Royal College or something. I was still students then.
But from the moment that we met you, when you walked into that first rehearsal, everybody in the ensemble was like, we're going to be friends with this guy for life. And sure enough, we've played almost entirely over the last, this was 16 years ago, we've played almost your entire small chamber music output in many of the large pieces in the US.
Absolutely. All my concertos, and especially this flute concerto, it's also very concerto. Mm-hmm. It's a dialogue between the soloist and the ensemble orchestra and the conductor, but also I hope to think that the soloist has a room for you to do your thing.
Absolutely, you give me a lot of freedom. I love working this way. I mean, I can't imagine working in traditional mode where the composer goes off into a tower in a total isolation and writes a piece, and then the performer receives it 3 months or maybe sometimes 3 days before the premiere, and there's no conversation, there's no dialogue.
It's insane.
Yeah. So I mean, we were in touch constantly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean that opening session, it's probably worth just playing a little bit of it. So the orchestra's playing a sort of blanket of this very textury, percussive sounds, little tiny. I imagine like squirrels in the forest, like coming out.
And seashell chimes.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And the flute part begins, just kind of like this. It's almost like speech. So Dai gives me a few boxes. He gives me one pitch. It's just F, right? And the syllables F, S, K, T, TH, S, sh, right?
Yeah.
And little tiny, it's basically like a game. It's notated like a little tiny game. And it's like, okay, so you've got these 8 boxes. You've got these 8 or 9 syllables. Mm-hmm. You've got these rhythms. Now make a more interesting game.
And also the rhythms it needs to groove.
It needs to groove, right? It's got to be in a, because yeah. And I sort of take some time in the middle of the bars a little bit, Yeah. You gave me this really great image early on when I was learning the piece. Because I confess I got the score and I was like, oh my God,
Really?
This is the hardest thing I've ever looked at. Yes.
Really?
I didn't tell you, but I had a mild panic attack. felt some despair. But then you said, you know what? These gestures are like, imagine, you know, like a great jazz drummer who always has pulse going in her head, right? Absolutely. But in the middle of a bar, there's this flight of fancy that goes up, and then you land back down. But you know, the middle of the bar is this. It's not that it's arrhythmic at all. It's just that it temporarily departs. It's inside the pocket. It's inside the groove. But really, really fabulous drummers, of course, are doing like 5 against 7 against 13, incredibly complex rhythms. And then you always land back down. So that really helped me too. And you know, I'm teaching this piece now to a lot of students. It's great that it's got a life. You know, so many flutists want to play it. And the groove part is what we start with, you know, because they look at the score and they're like, oh, this looks so hard. But if you just start improvising with it and don't worry about where your mouth is going. And so we just end up doing like, I mean, we can do this right now. We just end up doing without the instruments. So, can do it all day.
That's just like the beginning. Just like beginning, yeah.
And then you add to that, he adds little shapes, you know, little hairpins. So there's, you know, it's not entirely up to the performer. You have little shapes and then big shapes.
And the orchestra comes in.
So you... And then it goes from there.
Yeah, okay. Wow.
But that was done over Skype, right?
That was all done.
You were like, okay, so if I do, then can I add a pitch?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, you can add any pitch you want.
But I'm always very sensitive about pitch and how, because I'm a harmony kind of person. So I can't let anyone pick pitches.
So pitches you don't let me pick pitches. You let me pick rhythms.
Others you can, but not pitches.
So this is a game with very serious rules.
That's true.
A flutist should not be trusted to pick. No, I would pick good pitches. I would pick good pitches.
And then we met because I knew it's going to be, but then I didn't know what's the best way of notation. That's what we discussed in Paris as we spoke, rather than writing everything in, but to do boxes. So you have your own favorite combination, and then you can do it in a concert.
Yeah.
And then I remember on Skype you are. So I always ask this to soloists who are asking me to write a piece. So what do you want to do? Is there anything you want to do, you always wanted to do, but never really you could? You know, this is a difficult question. Some people really say weird things. And then you wanted to do something playing flute while you're singing.
Yeah.
Glissando.
Well, I was kind of inspired also by a sound that your daughter Mina, who was 3 at the time,
who was in Skype.
In Skype. So I'm in my pajamas in Brooklyn, and Dai is in London. You know?
Like this.
And I hear Mina go "Ray!" in the background, and I was like, "Oh, hi, Mina," which is basically me going, imitating this child's sound with the flute holding just a note. I mean, I just picked E. That's what ended up in the piece. Then you can add.
Amazing.
You can add a timbral trill to that. So it's going.
And then that inspired me to write orchestra part. The timpani goes glissando down together with the orchestra going crescendo, and then that just sort of has a good. I thought it was a good impact. Not just a flute player doing the experimental thing, but it's a.
No, it's one of my favorite moments. It's really fun. It's very much a team effort, and I'm so excited to do that with the Philharmonia. Such an incredible group. And they have so much energy and such nuance and a beautiful sound too. You know, like a distinctive sound.
I never think that working with you is like work.
Yeah.
It was like a part of. I always think, and I tell people that just composing for me is just like playing in a sandpit. I just play there, and then. I think that the more and more the sort of mainstream soloists, whatever that is in the profession, I always think that they are in the middle of the sandpit, and they are fighting over the toy they fancy and stuff. And I like very much if I'm just left alone in the corner and I just play with my buddies, you know, and I just do my thing.
Yeah.
And then we play with the people I really love, and then that's the castle I have. And that's I like.
You know what's so interesting about that as a metaphor, and it relates to what we were talking about before, with notation in the boxes. I think my role is to actually redefine the sandbox, to take the sand out, put it outside of the box, make the box bigger.
It's true, and you
make it less boxy.
Center. So you can put me into the little central.
Well, yeah. I mean, and the truth is that we're always, if we're really alive, I mean, as humans, but also as musicians, we have this heightened responsibility to be alive, to be present on stage, but also just in our thinking. Like everything comes out in our music making. Everything that we eat, everything that we listen to, everything that we read. All the conversations we've had, you know, all of the ways that we've loved and had our hearts broken, like all of that comes out in our music, you know. But I think that our essential nature is to move around that sandbox, to move the. I mean, for me, I literally, like when I hear you say sandbox, I'm like, I just want to take that sand, I want to take those toys, I want to move everything around, I want to get people talking to each other who haven't talked to each other before.
That sounds very
and the sandbox needs to be bigger. You know, classical music has been inside of this tiny house, walled off garden. And new music in many senses has been even smaller. You know, it has built walls around itself. I'm just not interested in that at all. I think we have to start from a place to which we don't recognize those walls, that we are making and playing.
Yeah, sure.
And gathering and bringing people together in a place that is porous. The walls are porous. And it's amazing that the Philharmonia, which is the very famous orchestra, and the Philharmonia is doing this series for a long, long time. It's just amazing how it's continuing for all these years. And then here we are today, and it sounds like it's even more international. And so many new works. I want to know things that I don't know. I don't go to a concert, and I don't actually get up in the morning in order to affirm something that I know. Like, that's not a reason to live. Absolutely. A reason to live is to discover something that we don't know, and to have our minds blown, our imaginations activated, and to go into the concert hall and come out a different person with different ears, more open ears, with a different way of thinking about music. A different way of thinking about the communal experience that is attending a concert and being a part of it. You know, an audience member is not a passive member of this. An audience member is absolutely active, and the listening that takes place in a concert hall, we feel that on stage. I play entirely differently when people are listening. That's funny you say that, because I mix and edit the recordings of for example, this Flute Concerto, which is now out in CD, and then I was comparing your two performances. One was the evening concert. The next day was the matinee, if you remember. It's the silence from the hall is different, and you play completely different. And the daytime and night is different. So I always think that the music is a completely collaboration between the person who writes it, who performs it. Of course, they're together, collaboration, but also the person who organizes it, because unless your concert is in your living room, it's a little bigger than that. And if you want the person who you don't know to listen to it, then you need people who are listening. Yeah. So then you need to organize, and then the audience. So without a person who's listening, then you can't perform. Yeah. And I can't write if you don't perform. So the whole collaboration is so tight, and you can do it. You can do this collaboration in an instant. That's another thing. You don't need to have a meeting before. It's just you play a concert. If you'll be there, that's the collaboration. Perfect circle. We need each other. Yeah, that's true.